Saluton, good evening. This Mariv. I hope you can hear me okay.
Perfectly.
Welcome to this. If anybody has a question, please just write in the chat. So I can see questions quite easily. So you're all very welcome to this taster course of the Irish language, where we will practice some of the most commonly used phrases and expressions. But first of all, I'll just say the name of the language. It's in Irish itself, it's called Gaeilge or Gaeilge, depending on the dialect. But in English, the best terminology is to call it Irish, simply the Irish language. Some people call it Gaelic. That creates a danger of confusion with Scottish Gaelic, which is a very similar language, but not the same language. If you buy a book, Teachers of Gaelic, you'll be learning Scottish Gaelic. If you want to learn Irish, there's a book called Teachers of Irish. So just to keep those separate, and the other language is the same. And Slovak Irčina, Esperanto la Irlanda, German Irish, Irlandais, Polish Język Irlandzki. It's the best, it's the most usual terminology, and it's the terminology of both of linguistics and of the European Constitution. So we begin at the beginning, and the normal salutation, it's Diarruit, and the answer is Dies Muireruit. There are some who prefer to say hi, but the traditional salutation in Irish is Diarruit, which means literally God to you, Diarruit. And the reply is Dies Muireruit, God and Mary to you. That's to a singular person. If you're speaking to a group of people, you say Diayiv, as I wrote in the beginning of the chat, Diayiv, which is saluting everybody, and Fáilte Roimh is you're all welcome. Fáilte, welcome. Fáilte Roimh. As you can see, there's a lot of letters written in Irish which are not pronounced. So Diayiv and Fáilte Roimh. So beginning in Diarruit, you can repeat if you want to. I don't hear you, but this virtual format is different from physical presence. So we'll do the best we can. 3 years ago, I came to Bratislava and we had more than 100 people present. So it was easier because I could get people to repeat things and I could hear their pronunciation. But I don't think it's possible with the virtual world. So I mean, I'll just have to continue, and you can repeat as you wish. So it's Diarruit and Dies Muireruit, the first two salutations. Then to introduce yourself, my name is Seán. I just say Is Misha Seán. Is Misha Seán. It's Misha Moira, it's Misha Anya, depending on whatever your name is. That the name goes last. It's like in French, je m'appelle Seán. My name is Seán, but Is Misha is the normal Irish for this. Is Misha Seán. And then if you're asking who's somebody, if you don't know somebody, you can say, Ke he tusa? Who are you? Ke he tusa? It's not rude to say Ke tusa. And the reply then is Misha Seán, is Misha Aisling. I think we all have the text in front of you. So is Misha Aisling Ní Riain, is Misha Seán Ó Riain. There's the distinction between the feminine and masculine. Always for the masculine, Seán Ó Riain. Aisling, the feminine is Ní. So Aisling Ní Riain, is Misha Aisling Ní Riain. I have a daughter called Aisling. Is Misha Aisling Ní Riain, is Misha Seán Ó Riain. Ke tusa. And if you want to ask who somebody else is, you can say just Ke Shin. Who's that? Ke Shin. Then Shine Seán, Shine Moira. It's a woman. You say Ke Shin. It's a man. Ke Shin. A woman. Ke Shin. That's and then the reply. Shine Shemus. Shine Seán. Shine Moira. The accent. Somebody asked about the accents. The accents just make the vowel long. So like Fáilte, for instance, my name is Seán, written with an accent, Seán. If you write it without an accent, it becomes a different word. It's Shan, and Shan means old. If you put the accent on the different vowel on the A, it becomes Seán, which means happiness. So Seán is happiness, Seán is the name, Seán means old. So if you write the name with no accent, you're really writing old, Seán. And the pronunciation is quite different, Seán and Sean and Seán. It makes a huge difference to the pronunciation. And the accent goes on each vowel and makes them longer, simply. So you can go on all 5 vowels. And there's no circumflex, no grave. It's only one accent. It's the accent aigu, as they call it in French. So, okay. So, then is Misha Ashling or is Misha Sean? Then to ask somebody, do you speak a particular language? To ask somebody, do you speak Irish? You say, Will Gaelga Agut. Will Gaelga Agut. You write on, but you don't really say it. You just say will. You have to write. In Irish, there are a lot of things written that you don't pronounce. It's silent letters. So, Will Gaelga Agut. The answer is Tá or Neil. Tá means there is. One of the features about Irish is that there's no one word for yes or no. It depends on which question. If the question is will Gaelga Agut, then the reply is Tá or Neil. Tá on its own means there is. Like will Dini Mo. Are there people outside? You said Tá. There are people outside. Tá. Or if there are not, Neil. Neil literally means there are not. So will Gaelga Agut, it doesn't mean do you speak Irish. It means the Irish expression is do you have Irish? Literally, is there Irish at you? Because there's no verb to have in Irish. So it's is there Irish at you? And Tá or Neil. Then the next one is Tá biogan berla gum. That means I have a little English. Berla is the word for the English language. England is Sasana, but the English language is Berla. It's an old word for like a jargon, something, a language used by experts, not understood by the general population. And that was the origin of Berla. So will Gaelga Agut, will Berla Agut, Tá, Neil. Will Esperanto Agut, do you speak Esperanto? Will Slovakish Agut, do you speak Slovak? Will Germanisch Agut, do you speak German? Will Frankish Agut, do you speak French? Will Spanish Agut? Will Russisch Agut? Will Polnish Agut? Most of the languages end in the ish sound. So Slovakish, Germanisch, Frankish. Exceptions are Gaelga Berla. Most other languages, Spanish, Portuguese, Idalish, Italian is Idalish, Polish, Polonish, Slovakish, Slovak. They have ish in the end. You write IS, but you pronounce it ish. So, Tá biogan berla gum. Then Tá Esperanto liefa gum means I speak fluent Esperanto. So Tá berla liefa gum, I speak fluent English. Tá Slovakish liefa gum, I speak fluent Slovak. Liefa is fluent. There's an expression in Irish called luffa liefa, which means fluent but ungrammatical. If you speak fluently in a language, but you make a lot of grammatical mistakes, that's called luffa liefa. Luffa means literally rotten, as in fruit go rotten. Tana hula luffa, you say the apples are rotten. So luffa liefa means fluent but ungrammatical. Luffa liefa. So Tá Esperanto liefa gum, Tá berla liefa gum, Tá biogan Gaelga gum means I speak a little Irish. Could I write that down? Of course, but write down which. I'm not sure which for what I should write down. Any new word, I suppose. New word is not in the text. We have liefa anyway. Oh, luffa liefa. Yeah, sorry. Luffa liefa. Luffa liefa. That means luffa liefa, fluent but ungrammatical. So luffa liefa, that's an expression. Luffa liefa. You hear it particularly in Dublin because there are lots of people who speak Irish in Dublin, but it's not the most grammatical Irish. It's not maybe the most traditional Irish. People who prefer to say hi rather than divrit or dismurrit, that they would be regarded as luffa liefa. Then the next phrase, not going too fast, hopefully, but 10 minutes. So yeah, this is to ask who somebody is. Kehishin. If you ask me who's that girl over there, who's that woman, you say Kehishin, Kehishin, Kehishin. And the reply is Shini Moira. that's Mary. Shini Moira, Shini Breed, Shini Kathleen, Shini Marianne, whoever that is, it's Shini. The word for she is the same as in English, she. The word for he is she. So he is ta she, she is ta she. I can write that maybe. So ta she is, ta she, he is. The verb is always first in Irish. Again, it's most European languages you have the subject, verb, object. Not in Irish. Irish is more like Arabic. It's verb, subject, object. We start every sentence with the verb normally. So she is tashi. So kehishin, shini moira. And if it's a man, we want kehishin. Who's that? Who's that man? Who's that boy? Kehishin, shine shon. So it's kehi, shini, kehe, shine. Because the word for he is she, word for she is like in English she, not written the same. Tashi is written differently, but pronounced the same basically as in English. Or in Esperanto, she estas. So to ask where you're from, somebody's where you're from, Karastit, where you're from, Karastit, and you say I'm from Bratislava. Us Bratislava dum. Us Bratislava dum. Karastit. Us Bratislava dum. Us Erendum means I'm from Ireland. Us Erendum. You could say us an Osterdum, I'm from Austria. Us an Bollendum, I'm from Poland. Us an Njarvindum, I'm from Germany. Us an Vrengdum. All the different countries. You just say us, and from the country, whatever it is. Us Berlindum, us Parisdum, us Londondum. You just put in where you're from there in the middle, but you start with us and you end with dum. And asking somebody else is Karastit, us Bratislava dum. The verb to be is quite complex in Irish. There are different forms depending on whether something is permanent or temporary. Like, for instance, it can be like Spanish, ser and estar. Ser is like is in Irish. Estar, like ta. You can even hear it. Está bien, taguma. Ta in Irish, está in Spanish. We also have in the Slavic languages like ona jest in Polish, ona jest, she is. Ona bywa codziennie, she is every day. She is now, ona jest teraz. She is every day, ona bywa codziennie. Astum literally means, astum it means from. X. Actually, dum is to me. Me, and bit is to you. So you would say, for instance, give me a cup. Tur kapan dum. Dum is literally to me. I give a cup to you. Hugus kapan bit. It's an idiomatic phrase. It doesn't make sense word by word, but the way the normal way to say where you're from is Karastit. Karastit, as Erendum, as Bratislava. And moving on to the next verb, to be. You're welcome. The next verb then to be is to something permanent. Ta is temporary. Like you said, ta tisharum. I'm tired. Literally, there is tiredness on me. But something permanent, like if you're Irish, you would say on ernach tu. On ernach tu. The answer is sha. If you yes, sha. You write isa, but you pronounce sha, like the Shah of Iran, pronounced sha. Or if you're not from Ireland, if you're not Irish, you say niha. Sha and niha. If you want to say I'm not, are you Irish? And somebody wants to say no, I'm Slovak, and you say niha is Slovakach me. Is Slovakach me. Is Ostrach me, I'm Austrian. Is Ungarach me, I'm Hungarian. Is Polonach me, I'm Polish. Or is Sassanach me, I'm English. Sassana is England. The country is England, Sassana. An English person is Sassanach. You might know that from the film Outlander. You hear the word Sassanach used the last. But the English language then is Berla, completely different. So Sassenach, and Sassenach means either there's no distinction man or woman. Sassenach is an English man or an English woman. You don't distinguish. The same with Slovak, Ostrach, Hungarach, Polynach. They're not there's no male female distinction there. It's just the name for the country, the name for the person. So an Ireland so Sha Niha. To look through the numbers, I think we're going really fairly rapidly, so we can go. We have time to go back through them. But I would like to, in the second half, I would like to introduce a song to you, because there was an Irish patriot in the 19th century, Thomas Davis, who said that he didn't really mind who wrote the laws on condition that he could write the songs, because songs are remembered in a way that words get forgotten. So that's why I'd like to practice a little song with you in the second half, which uses the numbers as well. So we start by going through the numbers, and the song uses some of these numbers. So the numbers are starting with 1, a hen. A hen, you have this in the text. A hen, a do, a 3. So hen do 3, 1, 2, 3. A hen do 3, a cahir, a cúig, a sé, a seacht, a hocht, a 9, a 10. Going through them again rather quickly. A hen, a do, a 3, a cahir, a cúig, a sé, a seacht, a hocht, a 9, a 10. Then moving further on, 11, a hendeag but 12, a dóiag. A hendeag, a dóiag. A 3deag, you see the changes in the beginning of words. I won't go into the details of that, but there are changes at the beginning of words in Irish quite a lot. It's a characteristic of the language. My name is Seán. To address me directly in Irish, you would say a Hiáin. So Seán becomes a Hiáin. Somebody called Seamus, you would say a Hamish. Somebody called Moira, you would say a Voira. Somebody called Kathleen, you would say a Kathleen. Breed, a Vreed. There's a vocative case which changes sometimes the beginning, always the beginning, but sometimes the beginning and the end of a word. So Seán becomes a Hiáin, changes both the beginning and the end. It's great fun. It's much more complex than English, where you just say Seán. Irish is not that easy, straightforward. So continue the numbers anyway. So 11, a hendeag, 12, a dóiag, a 3deag, a ceathrdeag, a cúigdeag, a sédeag, a seachtdeag, a hochtdeag, a 9deag, a fiche. 20 is fiche, and then going up from that again. No, the ah in front of the number, the question about the ah, if it has any meaning, no, it's just used in counting. Just a hen, a do, a 3. But then when you're counting things, you'd say 3 couple. You wouldn't say a 3 couple. It's used particularly in counting, hen, do, 3. But 3 horses would be 3 couple. And they use the singular with numbers. Another complication. You don't say 3 horses, you say 3 horse. So 3 couple, 3 cows, 3 vo. And again, you change the beginning. Bo becomes 3 vo. Couple becomes 3 couple. So it's great fun, all the changes in the beginning of words. So to go up a little bit further now, feha is feha, then trocha, dahad, trocha 30, dahad, quega, shaska, shachto, ochto, nocha, kead. Kead is 100, and mile, 1,000. One of the commonest phrases in Irish, which is even known by President Kennedy of the US, was the famous Céad Míle Fáilte wrote. Céad Míle Fáilte means 100,000 welcomes. Céad Míle Fáilte, and wrote means to you, basically. Wrote, literally it means in front of you. We put 100,000 welcomes in front of you. Wrote is in front of you, but the normal phrase to welcome somebody is, in Irish, is Fáilte Roit. What I wrote at the beginning, at the beginning, Fáilte Roiv means you're welcome, literally welcome in front of you, but it's a way of saying you're all welcome. Fáilte Roiv, Guléir. And when President Kennedy came to Ireland, He said in 1963, he said that the welcome he received in Ireland, he really understood what Céad Míle Fáilte meant after coming to Ireland. And he promised to come back in the springtime, but he was assassinated in November, so he never came back. This is the Céad Míle Fáilte, I guess. We have time, so maybe I'll just go through the whole thing again. So we've got die rit, just for pronunciation, die rit, dis mudderit, is Mr. Seán, then Cé Tusa, is Mr. Aisling, is Mr. Seán Ó Riain, is Mr. Aisling Ní Riain. It's like in Slavic language, we have Kowalski, Kowalska. Kowalski is like Ó Riain, Kowalska, Ní Riain. Slavic languages changed at the end of the word, and Irish changes at the beginning. The other way around, but it's quite similar. My second daughter was born in Warsaw, Poland, and I had to explain this. That's how you in Polish you change the endings of the word. We change the beginning in Irish. So my daughter is called Ní Riain. My name is Ó Riain. My daughters are called Ní Riain. Aisling Ní Riain and Kira Ní Riain. So Cé Tusa is Misha Aisling Ní Riain is Misha Seán Ó Riain. Will Gaelga gut literally means is there Irish at you? Because there's no verb to have in Irish. We have several verbs to be, no verb to have. It doesn't exist. It's a little like Russian. They would say uminia kniga. So literally, uminia kniga is ta laur agam. Literally, there is a book at me, ta laur agam. And then you have a book, ta laur agut. So the last letter of the last word tells you who has the book. Ta laur agam. The M is me for me. Ta laur agut. The T for tu means that you have the book. So we'll Gaelga gut, we'll Béarla gut, we'll Esperanto gut, we'll Slovakish gut, we'll Germanish gut, and we'll fly ta or nil. Or you can say ta biogan. I have a little. Biogan is a little. Small is biog, and biogan means a little. So ta biogan Béarla gum, ta biogan Gaelga gum, ta biogan Slovakish gum means I speak a little Slovak. Ta biogan Germanish gum. I speak a little German. Ta Esperanto lífagum, fluent Esperanto. Ta Gaelga lífagum, I speak fluent Irish. Then asking who somebody else is. Céhishin, Céhishin. If it's a woman, Céhishin. If it's a man, Céhishin. Céhishin, Shini Moira, Shini Breed, Shini Kathleen. Céhishin, Shine Sean, Shine Seamus, Shine Mihal, Shine Pather, Shine Paul. Then asking who somebody is from. Karastid, as Bratislavadam, as Varshavadam, as Berlindam, as Parisdam, as Eirendam, as Anosterdam, I'm from Austria, as Anosterdam, as Eirendam. And then to ask if you're Irish or what your nationality is. On Ernach too, you had the ch sound as well. English speakers have difficulty with the ch sound. The Prime Minister in Ireland is called the Taoiseach. The pronunciation is Taoiseach. Sometimes a lot of English speakers just say Taoiseach. They manage to make two mistakes in one word, saying Taoiseach. It's not the tea shock or the coffee shock, it's the Taoiseach, with a shach at the end of the word. Strangely enough, people from the continent, Germans, Poles, Slovaks, have no problem with this. Russians, they can all pronounce it correctly. It seems to be just English speakers have a difficulty with it. Or people who speak English only, people who speak some other languages, people who speak Spanish, for instance, jota in Spanish, jueves, jugar, they have no problem with the sound. But it's important in Irish because it's very, very common in Irish. On Ernach, Slovakach, Ostrach, Ungarach, Polonach, Sassanach, it's all the time, Quilach, Mishnach. There are thousands of words ending in this in Irish, so if you get it wrong, you're showing thousands of times that you haven't been able to learn that sound. And it's an important sound because, so it's grammatically important because a kota means her coat, a chota, his coat. So if you can't pronounce the difference between a kota and chota, and a kota means you can't distinguish between his coat and her coat, or his horse and her horse. Her horse, a couple, no change. His horse, a couple. The word for his and her is the same, just a. So time to move on to the song, I think, is it at this stage? I know it's we still got a bit of time. I'll just go through the numbers once again. So a hen, a do, three, caher, cuig, she, a shacht, a hocht, a nine. You always write it, but when you're speaking rapidly, it tends to be dropped to say a hen, do, three, caher, cuig, she, shacht. You always write it. It's correct to write it, but like a lot of things in Irish, they're written, but not always pronounced. So a hocht. But you do say a hocht because without the a it would be ocht. 8 horses is ocht couple, so there's no a, but there's no h as well. The h is only there because of the a, so it's a hocht. But without the a, 8 horses, ocht couple. So then naide, heindiag, doiag, tridiag, cardiag, cuidiag, shediag, shachtiag, hochtiag, neidiag, fehe. Fehe, then it goes up then fehe hen, fehe do, fehe tri, fehe car, fehe cuig, fehe she, fehe shach, fehe hoch, fehe nei, trocha. In the same way then trocha hen, trocha do, up to dahad a hen, dahad do, dahad tri, cuiga, cuiga hen, cuiga do, cuiga tri, shaska, shaska hen, shaska do, shaska tri, shachto, shachto hen, shachto do, shachto tri, shachto car, shachto cuig, shachto she, shachto shach, shachto hoch, shachto nei, ochto, 80. You notice that a hocht for 8, but 80, ochto, you don't have the h. Dahad is 40, yes. Dahad, it actually comes from literally da ihad, 2 20s. Fiha is 20. Genitive of that is fihad. And then da ihad becomes dahad. So it means 2 20s. And in fact, the traditional Irish counted in 20s rather than 10s. So some traditionals, because if somebody is 80 years old, they wouldn't say he's 80, they would say Tasha Kera score. In other words, he's 4 score. It's like French 80. Somebody who's 97, for instance, they would say Tasha Shachmi and Aderg is an Kera score. Shachmi and Aderg means he's 7 years and 10 and 4 score. So Tasha Shachmi and Aderg is Kera score. It's a long way of saying it. It's more mathematical to say Tasha no Shacht. But the tradition was to count in 20s, so that the dahad, you mentioned dahad, it's a survival of the counting in 20s, so 40 became 2 20s. You get the same in Welsh as well, this counting in 20s. So we're up to ochto, nocha, kead. Counting after kead is kead sa hen, kead sa do, kead sa tri. Then up golchead, trichead, kerchead, cuichead, shechead, shachchead, ochchead, negead, mila. And then it's kind of, that's another one of the changes that from 200 up to 600, you say, the kead becomes golchead, like ich in German. Golchead, trichead, kerchead, cuichead, shechead. So it's the ich sound in German, but it's the beginning of a word, shechead. Up to 6, but then from 7 to 10, it's different again. It's shacht geld. It's a g sound. Shacht geld, och geld, nei geld, and then mila. And that's quite regular as well. Counting cows as well. It would be bo as a cow. Vo, tri vo, kere vo, quig vo, she vo, then shacht mo, ocht mo, nei mo. De bo, and that's how I did de mo as well. I won't go into the details of this because it's quite complex. It's more than we could manage in 45 minutes. And then we had Céad Míle Fáilte wrote 100,000 welcomes. Céad Míle Fáilte. That's a normal phrase in Irish. It's in English you don't normally say 100,000 welcomes. In Irish you do all the time say Céad Míle Fáilte. Somebody writes home after being away for a few weeks. It would be normal to say, well, Céad Míle Fáilte wrote. Céad Míle Fáilte wrote the rash. Your 100,000 welcomes home to you. So it's a common phrase. It sounds maybe exaggerated in Irish, but it's quite common. So we can maybe move on to the sound to page 2 at this stage. Do you have page 2? I can just turn over the page here, but if you can see page 2, yeah, perfect. We have it now. Oran is a song. Word, the Irish word for song, oran, oran. So you can see you don't pronounce all the letters. Oran, MH is ow, oran. And the name of the song is Big Éanach a Mairich I Gunta an Chláir. Big means there will be. Éanach is a fair. A Mairich, tomorrow. I Gunta an Chláir in County Clare. There will be a fair tomorrow in County Clare, it literally means. There will be a fair tomorrow in County Clare. The song, it's a quite simple song. It's a little girl who's 7 or 8 years old and wants to go to the fair, and she's asking her mother, can she go to the fair tomorrow? And her mother is saying, no, you're too young, you're not 10 or 11 yet. You're not 10 or 11 yet, so you can't go to the fair yet. But interestingly, she says, when you get to a 3-day bit more, when you're 13, you'll be growing up. So this is a little girl, like about 8 years old or something. She says, when you're 13, you'll be big, you'll be growing up at that stage. But you're too young yet, you're not 9 or 10 yet. So it's too young to go to the fair. So I think I'll read through the song first of all. We can sing it later on, but maybe just to go through the words first of all. And it's a good song for learning a language because there's a lot of repetition in it. Things are sung the same 3 times over, and this helps to fix new words in the memory. So it's Big Éanach a Mairich I Gunta an Chláir. Big. You pronounce a G sound, you don't write it as B-E-I-D-H, but you pronounce like a G, like a G, big. Big Éanach a Mairich I Gunta an Chláir. Again, the verb beginning the sentence. Big Éanach a Mairich I Gunta an Chláir. Big Éanach a Mairich I Gunta an Chláir. Big Éanach a Mairich I Gunta an Chláir. 3 times, 3 lines, the same thing. Then Ken varum é. What good is it to me? What use is it to me? What ma is good. But Ken varum é. What use is it to me? Ní bheith sa ann. I won't be there. Ní bheith sa, that's a traditional way of saying I will not be. A lot of people today would say ní bheith mis ann, but for the song it's better to say ní bheith sa ann. It rhymes better. So Ken varum é ní bheith sa ann. And then chorus, which comes in again and again, it's Is a bhairín an likitu an éanig mé. Is a little mother, a bhairín. Mother is máthir, but the diminutive in Irish is in. So máthir becomes a bhairín, and again you have the vocative, like a Hiain, as I mentioned earlier on. Seán Ó Riain, speaking to her mother, she would say a bhairín, little mother. She wouldn't say máthir, she'd say a bhairín. An likitu, will you allow me? Likitu, again the verb first. An likitu, unéanig means to the fair. Éanach is the sound, but unéanig is the genitive of that. So éanach becomes changed to éanig, unéanig, me, me. The last word, likitu uné, so bhairín an likitu unéanig me, means little mother, will you allow to the fair me? Me is the last word. Likitu unéanig me, that's repeated as well. So bhairín an likitu unéanig me. Is bhairín an likitu unéanig me. A bhórnín ó na hélige. A bhórnín ó means my darling. A bhórnín ó na hélige. Don't insist on it. Do not demand. Élig is to demand or to insist on something. A bhórnín ó na hélige. Now she's talking about her age. This is the reason why she doesn't want to go to the fair, because she's too young. She says, Níl tú a 10 ná héindeag fós. You're not 10 or 11 yet. You're not yet 10 years old or 11 years old. It's too young. The genitive and remnants of dative, yes. Yes, there are genitive and dative. The genitive is quite lively. The vocative as well is quite alive. There are just some remnants of dative cases. But I won't go into grammatical speaking. It's better to practice the language. So níl tú a 10 ná héindeag fós. Níl tú, you are not. Níl tú a 10, you're not 10. Ná héindeag, you're not 10 nor 11. Fós yet. Níl tú a 10 ná héindeag fós. You're not 10 or 11 yet. And then the interesting thing I'd find is you're a bit to a 3-deag bit more. When you're 13, you're a bit to a 3-deag bit more. You'll be grown up. You'll be all big. More literally means big, but also used for grown up. Tashi more. You're a bit to a 3-deag. You're a bit to a 3-deag bit more. And you see that you're a bit to again the changing big éanach of you're a bit to. you pronounce the big enach because the next word starts with a vowel, so you say big enach. But nur vet two, there's no G sound. It's nur vet two. Nur vet two, a tridiag, bet two, more, bet two. Don't say big two. Again, learners, they learn big, and then they start saying big two. But it's not traditional Irish is bet two. It's big when it's on its own. Like a mid-tone tomorrow. Will you be here tomorrow? Big. If the word is just on its own, then it's big. But if it says I will be here tomorrow, bemensa, bedsansa, or bemensa. So it's complex. And bet two more. And then the last one is Bearlum hen magresi brog. I would prefer my shoemaker. Gracie brog. Brog is a shoe. Gracie means a shoemaker. You don't really need the word brog there. Gracie on its own means a shoemaker. But Bearlum hen magresi brog. I would prefer my shoemaker. Again, 3 times the same thing. Now, ifigach arm felasi oer. To an army officer wearing golden lace. Now, ifigach, again the ach sound, ifigach arm felasi oer, wearing golden lace, but the fe means under. Felasi oer. You use prepositions a lot more in Irish. Now, ifigach arm felasi oer. So now we can move to singing. If I still have some voice left for singing. So this is the way it goes in singing. It goes Begin nach a moirige goon tel klaar. Begin nach a moirige goon tel klaar. Begin nach a moirige goon tel klaar. Geen waarom mij ne redsa aan. Is a waarin een likkie toe een neelig mij. Is a waarin een likkie toe een neelig mij. Is a waarin een likkie toe een neelig mij. A voor nien o na heilig gij. Niel toe den na hendig fos. Niel toe den na hendig fos. Niel toe den na hendig fos. Nur vet toe tridig bet toe moer. Is a waarin een likkie toe een neelig mij. Is a waarin een likkie toe een neelig mij. Is a waarin een likkie toe een neelig mij. A voor nien o na heilig gij. Bearlum hen mooi resi brog. Bearlum hen mooi resi brog. Bearlum hen mooi resi brog. I fik a charm veel osi oor. Is a waarin een likkie toe een neelig mij. Is waarin een likkie toe een neelig mij. Is waarin een likkie toe een neelig mij. A voor nien o na heilig gij. That's the way it goes basically. With lots of repetition. Yeah, question about is the vocative still used normally or is it slowly disappearing? I would say speakers who are more influenced by English tend not to use it. They tend to say Seán instead of a Riain. But those who are conscious of the language would use it. It's grammatically, for instance, to write Seán where you sort of a Seán, a Riain, it's a mistake. It would be in school or in an official text. If you don't use the vocative, it's just seen as a mistake. It's simply wrong, and you lose marks if you're doing an exam, or you lose if you a professional translator and you write that and somebody else corrects you, because the vocative is part of the language and it's not optional. It's part of the language. Still, it's something you learn in school, and there are some words, for instance, some names like in Scotland, Hamish. It's the vocative case. The nominative is Seamus, and the vocative is Hamish. But there are people who call themselves just Hamish, so they call themselves under the vocative. Hamish Campbell or Hamish Cameron. It's they're using the vocative word. There's another question. Yeah, if you go, yeah, these are common words. If he is an office, so if he is an officer. There are borrowings, of course, from English and from other words, like chambre is from chambre in French. Cugna is from the French coin. Like in every language, there are borrowings, and in Irish, lofty for lace. Ifigach from an officer. But the word for office is ifigach. So it's formed in the Irish way. It's not an R at the end. It's a ch at the end. Ifigach. So, are there any questions at this stage? We have another few minutes now. I just did this 5 minutes left at this stage. If there are any questions, any more questions, just write them in the chat. Questions. Otherwise, I might just sing the song again. You can find it anyway if you're in YouTube, or open YouTube and type in "Beginnach Morgen Flower." You'll find It's you're welcome. Welcome. I'm glad that this. So I'll just go through the singing again in any case. Anyway, because I think it's good for the sound of the song to sing it. So it's Begin nog een morgen goed en klaar. Begin nog een morgen goed en klaar. Begin nog een morgen goed en klaar. Ken waarom mijn wet ze aan. Ze waren een likje toen eigenlijk mee. Ze waren een likje toen eigenlijk mee. Ze waren een likje toen eigenlijk mee. En voor niet o na heilige. Niet zo Jenna hindjuk fos. Niet zo Jenna hindjuk fos. Niet zo Jenna hindjuk fos. Nu vet toe triedig vet toe moer. I won't sing the chorus again now because it's the same again. And in the last verse, it's Bjarlum hein magresi brog. Bjarlum hein magresi brog. Bjarlum hein magresi brog. Now if you get harm fail last year, it's a varin like it to an enlig me. It's a varin like it to an enlig me. It's a varin like it to an enlig me. I wouldn't know no heilige. I think the repetition is quite good in that song because it's just like a child, a 7 or 8 year old child. If they want to do something and you say no, they'll just repeat the question again and again. So that they want to go to the fair tomorrow, so they just say, Mother, will you not let me go to the fair tomorrow? Will you not let me go to the fair tomorrow? Will you not let me go to the fair tomorrow? So it's licky to an enlig me, and licky to an enlig me, and licky to an enlig me. They simply repeat it until they hope that eventually they get a yes rather than a no. Eventually, by repeating. Oh yes, to pronounce bar. I would prefer bar. Again, you silent F. The FH is normally silent in Irish. So it's bar. That's a conditional. I would prefer, basically. Yeah, I prefer normally. If you're saying I prefer apples to oranges, it's fjarlum. It's fjar. Just write that maybe. Right, it's fjar. That means I prefer. It's the normally I prefer. But bar means I would prefer. It's a conditional. I would prefer Bjarlum. Bjarlum dalumach na vanaf de stegen. I prefer to go out rather than stay at home. Just see if there's any discussion. Simplifying the authority of Irish. Yes, there has been a lot of discussion on this. I have a book which was published just about 100 years ago called Seán Ó Riain, and it's phonetic Irish. It never caught on. It was invented by a guy called Seán Ó Riain. His grandson, Eamon Ó Riain, was a minister in a government recently, but it's a phonetic book, but it's based on Cork Irish, the Irish of County Cork, Seán Ó Riain. It's been proposed, but it never caught on. The only thing that's left of this is the surname Ó Riain. It was invented by Seán Ó Riain, who writes, you can say, he writes his name with a V, Ó Riain. So that would be written by normally MH. That one family writes it with a V sound, with a V letter. Nobody else does. It never caught on. The orthography is, people are very, very conservative. It's very difficult to change orthography, even if it's a very complex orthography. So I think I promised to end it before a quarter. So I just thank you all for your attention. Gora míle maith in Irish. Gora míle maith. Gora maith. Gora míle maith. Thank you is gora maith. You want to say thank you a lot, you say gora míle maith. Thank you 1,000 times. So gora míle maith. Slán. Bye bye.